Okay. Good evening. Welcome to our Tuesday, January 17, 2023 Finance Committee meeting. We'll begin by calling to order, starting on this side.
Diane Potter.
Megan Carlson.
Becky Fless,
Jack Fitteroff.
administrators.
Beth Hopkins, Superintendent.
Andrea Dish, Business Manager.
Dave Dostey, Director of Operations.
Thank you. First thing on our agenda is a discussion of the 2021-2022 per pupil expenditures by budget category. That's quite a sentence to spit out. A lot of B's and P's in there.
We're actually going to table this conversation. What we had hoped to do is to be able to go on to the Department of Education website and do a comparison of how much we spend per expenditure category, budgetary category, like we've done in the past. Usually we provide that information after you've approved the budget. It's included as part of the overall budget packet, that newsletter that we send out. And this year we're going to try to do that on the front end. Feel like there's a lot of valuable information that would benefit the Finance Committee. However, Andrea has talked to you about the fact that we are struggling across the state with being able to hire auditors. And what we're finding is that the information that the Department of Education uses to make these decisions, they haven't received them because they haven't received a lot of the audits yet.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to have to table this, and as soon as we have the information available, we will share it with you.
Perfect. Well, this gives us an opportunity in the near future to build rather than respond to what we don't have. So that's a good thing. Then we'll move along. 5-year capital improvement,
That is me.
and that's a thick document.
It is, but I will try to go over as quickly as possible. So category that's in blue is this year's. This year's is definitely, we cut a lot out and did some things with some federal money and some different projects like that. So that's why the dollar amount is quite a bit lower than this year's. So just keep that in mind. There's, I understand it looks like a big number for this year's, but as we go through this, it'll kind of all be put together. I am going to start out, Lori Richards, if we want to turn to that one. Start off with the elementary schools. One of the things, talking to Karen Moody, the gym floor replacement has been on there for quite a few years. It's definitely due to be done, but if you go over there and look at the cafeteria floor, it's really all of a sudden taken a turn for the worse in a very accelerated way. More than likely, there's moisture that's coming up, from below. It's on a concrete slab area that's there. So the tiles, a lot of the tiles are popping. The cafeteria gets a lot of traffic. Kids are in and out of there. They have breakfast in there. There used to be art class that they hold in there. So takes a lot of wear and tear. So again, there's quite a few tiles that are pulling up in that area, and with the number of tiles that are pulling up, it's really a tripping hazard. So because of that, really, we shuffled things. We shuffled the cafeteria ahead and pushed off the gym floor for one more year, thinking we can get by with the gym the way it is, at least for one more year over there. The next project, last year we put off the pre-K playground, enlarging it. So it's back in budget for this year to do that. We are going to be moving the fence this year. And really, it says enlargement, but it's really to give the pre-K children more of a grassy area. There's way too much hard surface tar that's there. It's really not the best for the little kids to be playing on in that play area. So it's more to give them some more grass area and just reconfigure the playground a little bit and to help them out on that end of the building. It's nice they've moved to the wing, kind of separate from the rest of the kids, and it's right there where the playground is. So it's really nice.
Before you move on, I just want to clarify for anybody who may be listening. When you say for this year, I just want
Oh,
everyone
sorry.
to be clear that we're
Yep.
talking about budgeting for 23, 24.
Yep.
So they're not projects for this year.
Right, it's not this
Sorry.
budget year, it is next budget year. Yes, correct. Yep. Next thing on the list, we really need to start doing carpet replacements. The building is 30 years old. Most of the carpets that are in the classrooms are the original carpets that are in there. The hallways, not all, but some of the hallways have been redone in certain areas in some rooms, but classrooms have not been touched. So we put in $10,000 a year for the next 3 years, thinking it can probably, we're hoping to get 3 classrooms. And not all of the classroom is carpet. So it's kind of 2/3 of the class is carpet and 1/3 is hard VCT tile. So the tile would stay and the carpet would be replaced. And we do, similar to what's in here, would be the carpet squares. So that way, if for some reason they're doing a project and they spill something on one of the squares, or even if it's, 2 squares, we can pull those squares up and just replace that portion of the floor. Instead of having to worry about now, it's you spill and there's nothing you can really do other than try to clean as much up as possible.
And Gabe, the reason why you're replacing carpet with carpet versus VCT tile?
Yeah, it's really,
That was my
a lot of
question.
it is acoustics.
gonna say.
It's really noisy. With all the hard surfaces, it bounces off everything. Some of the classrooms, you may be able to do something, definitely. Art is in a room that has all carpet in now. Instead of being in the cafeteria, we've moved them out into another room. That room, I would definitely suggest doing a hard floor in that room, where the art class is. So we'll look depending on what the room is used for. Some of the classrooms are not just primarily used for classrooms. They're used for other OTPT, those sort of things. So depending on the use, we'd look at what we'd do for a floor. But definitely acoustics is the reason why we'd want to stay with the carpet. Yep. Every 5 years or so, we have to do our sprinkler inspections. That's the next thing that's on here. They just check for any obstructions. We want to make sure the sprinkler systems are going to work when they need to work. So it says just testing, but they actually do a flush of the whole system. So they flush all the debris out and do all that. So there's a whole process to it. So that's something that comes up every 5 years. Roofing, just annual inspections. HVAC, again, the building is 30 years old. And a lot of the valves and the electronic actuators that work the valves are really aged out. And it's just a little bit of money in there to keep slowly replacing some of those. There again, like the carpet, this will get 3 classrooms. So hopefully in the next 5 years or so, we'll be able to pretty much get them all replaced in those classrooms. Yep. And there is a swing set. I put a placeholder for a swing set along with the playground expansion. They would like to see what we could get for a swing set. I threw in 15,000. I'll be honest, it was a kind of a last minute thing looking at it all. So I have not been able to get a hard figure yet. So that's something at least is in there. I will be honest, playground equipment is not cheap. It's pretty expensive.
So it's made of good playground.
Yes, good playground equipment that's going to last is expensive. So, but there's a placeholder there. We're hoping to get, with that amount, instead of just a 2-swing, set, it would be actually like a 2-section together. So they'd be able to get at least 4 swings out of it. And with moving the fence, we'll have enough room to do a swing along the side of the building over there. There are a couple other things that Karen has emailed me on, but they're just little items. There was some wall pads in the gym. She noticed the other day that were pretty ripped up, and it's for gym class. If they are doing any activities. If there's any hard surfaces, they want to make sure they're padded up below. So I honestly, I haven't had a chance to take a look at them. So that's in there. Another thing she mentioned is, which we've already done this down at Riverview, is the fascia trim on the outside. There again, it's 30 years old. If we can paint sections, that's great, but down in Riverview, we had to replace some of it. And when we did that, we actually did the metal full coverage. So that way it's 30 years at least, we won't have to touch it. So I think we may need to look at just putting a little bit in there over the next, couple of years to do some fascia replacement like we did at Riverview already. Yep. On to Riverview. We will go there next. The gym floor at Riverview is the same product as the Laura E. Richards floor. Just so everybody's aware, both schools were done within a year of each other 30 years ago. So a lot of materials that are in one are in the other. So there again, they're all aged out. The floor needs to be replaced for sure. So we kept it in, which we didn't have to replace the cafeteria floor over there. So we have the gym floor in this year's, next fiscal year's budget. The other line item is, there again, this is something that we did over at Laurie Richards. We put another set of fire doors on the first floor hall. So it really separates the main lobby from the classrooms. That way, if there's any fire, if there's any emergency, they can close the doors, and it's another barrier between that front lobby, main office, and the classrooms. This is something that we, again, did at LER, and it's worked nicely over there. Everyone likes it, so we're hoping to do the same thing down at Riverview. Again, carpet replacement over the next 3 years. Let's see if we can do the same thing there as we're doing at LER. One thing that next item is emergency lights. Emergency lights, there again, everything is reaching its phase out year of 30 years. So emergency lights, we have replaced batteries over the years, and the units are coming to the point where it's more than just batteries, it's the charging units, the bulbs are all burning out. They make now LED emergency lights that last 3 times as long. They take so much less power. Really here, especially, they're failing. So we really need to start phasing in to replace all emergency lights. Hopefully that'll be enough for the next couple of years to do it. So that's the hope. We'll know a little bit more once we do a complete audit of the system and see how bad it really is. Little ceramic tile in the custodian entrance. Oddly enough, they put a little section of hard floor in front of the custodian's office door, and then the rest is carpet. So he has no place to store carpet extractors, floor scrubbers. It gets put in little closets instead of where it should be, just outside the door right there on some sort of hard floor. We've done ceramic tile at other schools, and it's worked out well. So that's what we're hoping to do here. Sprinkler test, just like at LER. Same like at LER. Valve and actuator replacements, $5,000. Where again, we're at that point where it's 30 years. We need to do the same. So, and that's it for Riverview. The other side, Pittston. Pittston, the first item at Pittston is extend the playground. And this is not necessary, this isn't the grassed area, this is extend the paved portion of the playground at Pittston. Where we put the modulars in, it has really depleted the amount of basketball court that they have there. So we're hoping to gain some basketball court area and reset the second hoop that's always been there. That was taken down to accommodate bringing in the modulars. So this would be to extend that paved area and to reset the basketball hoop. The other item is to put a guardrail on the new parking lot that's on the upper side of the Pittston School. It's something we did last summer, added the parking, but the parking edges up to the top side of the school. And the way everyone's parking is they park, kind of pull in towards the building. So we really need a guardrail along that side, just as a safety to the school. It's all brick on that side, but we just need something on that area. So we put some money in there for a guardrail. We've noticed, I don't know if this is due to the next thing on the list, we have rear stair repair. So at the school, they've changed sort of the flow of lunch, the way lunch and recess sort of works. They have the group of children that line up in the hallway and lunch rolls in. When that lunch group is done, they exit out the back door of the gym, which is an old set of stairs, and it's very easy to get across there to the playground. So it's this kind of circular pattern. So as one group leaves, the other group comes in and it works. But the stairs that they're using to go down are really old. And they are in need of repair for sure. So we put some money in there to redo the rear stairs and redo the rails on that set of stairs in there. And that's pretty much it. We just regular roof inspections that's there. That's pretty much it for Pittston. Helen Thompson. Helen Thompson, very similar to Pittston. It's extending the playground pavement. We would be doing the same, and this is due to the modulars taking up that paved area on the playground. And again, it doesn't say it in here, but we would be resetting the basketball hoops also. So this would be extending some paving and resetting. I believe there are 2 basketball hoops that we could reset at that playground. Floor care, in here, they have a wood floor in the gymnasium. So this is the amount of money that we need to refinish the floor, and that's something that we do ourselves to keep the cost down. Yep. Again, emergency lights, we're sort of in the same situation at Helen Thompson as we are at Riverview. Emergency lights, we've been replacing batteries, but they're all failing. They are. Sprinkler tests, same as the other schools. We are hoping to, as if you look down, you'll see the HVAC for the heat pump replacements. We're hoping that after this year, we'll pretty much have most of them all replaced, especially all in the classrooms. That's our hope. So we have taken money out that we've had in there for quite a few years for replacing heat pumps, but it did leave some monies in there for just compressor repairs. Some of the lesser used areas, we may still have some of the old units, depending on how many units we really can complete with the project that we have.
And we're completing that project by using federal dollars.
Exactly. Yep.
I have a question. Helen Thompson is roughly the same age as Laura Richards and Riverview, correct?
It's actually younger.
Just a little bit, yeah, a little bit younger.
Why a wood floor in that gym and a rubber floor in the other?
Something to do when they designed it, they chose to do wood floor. And it's a different wood floor than at the high school also. It's a lot thinner. It's a parquet, what they consider a parquet sort of floor that's there. So it's wood, thinner pieces. So it's just a little bit. Yeah, and they are. They're sort of 16 inches wide, 24-inch long sort of panels that are locked together. Yeah, it's a wood floor, but it's not like high-end wood floor.
Right, yeah.
It's sort of middle line. Yep,
Is
yep.
is there any benefit to that versus
it's,
the rubber floor?
You will get a longer life expectancy of it. I mean, we've repaired a couple of areas to it, but it's holding up really well. We did re-sand it completely down, I believe it was 6 years ago. But with the finish that we have on now, it's a diamond sanding disc that we put on a machine, and we just take the surface down, so we don't have to reline it or anything like that. But it pretty much takes almost all the finish down, clean it all off, and put 2 new coats. So it saves on having to sand it all the way down, repaint all the lines. So we've been really saving some money by doing it ourselves.
When we replace the other gym floors, is it worth considering doing this there?
The cost is gonna be pretty, I would say it's gonna be well more than double to do the wood floor.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Even in a gym the size of the elementary schools.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite a bit more. Yep.
Just
It's
curious.
something that I discussed with the company that we did get the quotes from. They do all different types of floors. They do poured rubber like at the middle school. They do these vinyl floors. So there's multiple different types. But they're pretty confident with the newer vinyl compared to what it was 30 some odd years ago. We'll get even more life out of the floor that they'll put down,
Okay.
for sure.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Going back to the heat pump replacement, would you either you or Pat let the committee know how much we're spending total out of our federal grants for the, I want you to understand
Yeah.
how much it's costing us out of federal monies to replace all of the heat pumps in Helen Thompson. Pat, you don't have to ballpark it, Pat.
Well, I don't remember if it's 500,000 or 700,000.
Wow.
It's a lot of money.
We spend a lot of money in that
Yes.
building.
So I just wanted you to when
I
Gabe
think
said
it's- I
it'll
think
be
it's-
complete, not without
Well,
the expenditure of a large amount of federal money, and that's coming out of the Easter 3 or ARP.
ARP, it's coming out of ARP.
yeah, and with these heat pump replacements, these are the ones that primarily serve all of the classrooms that are there.
And Easter 3 and ARP are one and the same. I call it one thing,
Sorry.
Pat calls it something else.
Sorry, in my
No,
head, I
you're
heard you
fine.
say Easter
I
2.
get it.
I call it grateful to have it.
I do too, but it's a lot of money.
It's
Okay.
American Rescue.
Yes, okay, now I know what it is.
Wow, $500,000 or $700,000?
Yes.
And there are about 40 units that need to be replaced. There's a lot.
Why do they all need to be replaced?
They're about 30 years old.
Oh, they're 30 years old, okay.
They're coming up to 30 years old. One of the issues, they don't make these same units anymore, so we can't get parts. So so once they fail, we can't get parts, so we just sort of Band-Aid them as
Sure.
best
Yeah,
as we
yeah,
can to get
right.
by. It's hard during the school year if one fails, to replace them. It's not like you can just
Right.
send everybody home and start replacing some of these. It
And
takes
if
some
I'm
time.
not mistaken, you said that the high school has the same heat pumps as those.
It's a different brand at the high school, but the ones at the
Same
high
issue.
school will have the same sort of problem. They're again, the ones at the high school are about the same age as the ones at Helen Thompson. But they are still able to get some parts for those, so which is good.
I overstated, I apologize. It's $433,000.
Oh, that's nothing.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were doing heat pumps 30 years ago.
I didn't either.
I know everyone, we say heat pump and we think of the residential ones you see that are, the little units on the wall now that they've been doing. These are actually water source heat pumps, so they're definitely different. But they sort of the same technology. It's similar, it's just taking the heat from the water coolant instead of the heat from the ambient. So that's basically the difference. These are water source heat pumps, where versus air source heat pumps.
We have had issues with the heating and cooling of that building since the day that building opened.
I was trying to find a nice
Yeah,
way to say that.
it was very new technology
It was not a
back
good fit.
then. So, and they probably should have done more of a part heat pump system and part sort of, I guess I'll say old school, just with sort of air handlers and heating coils. But they went all in and said we wanted to do this with all heat pumps. And the other thing, we're not on public water or sewer. There's a cooling tower outside. So there's so many things with Helen Thompson that make it a little more difficult with everything.
Do the water sources, the well water and septic, is that harder on the pumps because they're?
Yeah, it's the water out there. I mean, everyone kind of knows, there's history with the water out there. So it's always been an issue. So we filter it. There are multiple stage tanks for all of it. So that is part of it. It's just the system, it's tough. It's not a geothermal system where you would see a lot of these they would drill the wells and it would be a geothermal. They probably planned that originally, but realized that they didn't have the money to do it. And so they kind of backed off and just did the cooling tower, which is a lot less expensive for sure. But definitely.
But really?
And that's.
Oh, yeah, how much have we spent over the years on the cooling tower and the whole system?
Right,
I mean, it sounds like seems like we're always talking about.
And heat, right?
Yes, I mean, there's.
If you have geothermal, you're using the water in the ground to produce heat for your building.
Right, so the heat comes from a boiler, just like an old school sort of system. And then they have the compressors in them is what fails all the time, which is electric, like a heat pump takes electricity. So it's very tough. They've come a long way in technology, and I think that's probably why there's no parts available for these, because they're probably like first generation, I'll say, and that's why they don't have the parts for them. The company was bought out by one of the big heat pump Dakin. So the company that actually manufactured these ones was bought out. So, and I think part of that was we're not making those parts anymore. And so it's tough.
When the building
Stuck with it.
when the building first opened, our electricity costs for that building went through the absolute roof. It has been, I don't even know. I love Helen Thompson. It just seems to be our lovable money pit where we seem to.
I have referred to it out loud as the problem child, and I don't like to do that because it's beautiful. It's a.
It really is a nice school.
But it has cost, for it being our youngest school, we have invested a lot of money in it.
Costs a
Yeah,
lot
it's-
of money.
It has, I mean, from re-roofing, I mean, this is the third time we've re-roofed this
Yeah.
school, the new siding that's on there. It's one, the heating system, this is not anywhere near the first time the heating system's been on the docket in a finance meeting.
It feels
It's
like a repeat of-
every year, the piping replacement for the heating system. It's ongoing. I'm out there all the time.
Is the alcove over the front door fixed?
That's not done yet.
We are
And the ceiling fell down.
The alcove, we are waiting to hear from our insurance company as whether or not we can proceed with repairs. They were going to send somebody else out to look at it. I'm waiting to hear back, so I have yet. I spoke to somebody today and I'm expecting a call, so we know what we can do.
Have we already had an inspector out there twice?
We had an adjuster out. Now they want to send a structural engineer, so
They
I
in
need to
awe, is
know.
that it? They're in awe of it and just need to.
Trying to determine if they're gonna pay for it or not.
crazy.
So we shall
I
see.
know, I feel bad for everyone, they haven't had a lobby in a month.
But if they've sent 2 adjusters and now they're sending a structural engineer, if it's not structurally sound and they won't, or if there's a structure issue and they won't repair it,
The structural engineer is trying to figure out why what happened. It isn't, not so much about it being structurally sound now,
okay,
but the reason why.
why it was a minute ago.
And I've let them know that our lobby is has been off limit and it's causing an issue. We need to move on. So I'm waiting to hear.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Last thing on here is, we have a lot of carpet out at Helen Thompson. And we need a new carpet machine to clean the carpets. This is actually, I believe on here, one of the only, pieces of cleaning equipment that we have in next year's budget. Yep. The middle school. First thing is heat pump replacement. So this is one of the air source heat pumps. It serves the computer lab, and really it's been changed, not the computer lab anymore, it's the learning lab. It died last year, so it definitely needs a replacement. They used
Like died?
well, it's beyond repair, definitely beyond repair. So we've been sort of limping along and it really needs to be taken care of. So we're hoping to do that this summer coming up. Exterior doors, we had some money in this year's budget and we're hoping to do some more next year to replace some exterior doors. Again, we had some money in for ceiling fan replacement. I'm hoping to finish it up next year and that'll be pretty much done for ceiling fans. Next thing is, again, just some baseboard. The cove base that's in the school, it's pretty old. There are some sections that are just peeling off the wall, so it just needs to be just redone, replaced, repaired. We've noticed we need to start going through and really doing some interior door knob repairs and renovations or replacement. Because we found that some doorknobs were not operating correctly or not operating at all. There's a lot of areas in the building that may not have been used for either offices or really not classrooms, but they're just certain areas that are being used for different things now than they were prior or years ago. So those knobs may have a different function. We need to make sure that the knobs have the correct classroom function in a classroom. So again, these knobs are 30, 40 years old. It's wear and tear. They just need to be
And the
fixed.
cost to replace a knob.
I'm glad everybody's sitting. So the cost to replace a classroom knob, some schools are worse than others depending on the type of style that they have. They're anywhere from $800 to $1,000
What? Shut up.
to replace.
Sorry, I'm so shocked. That's
So
not
a lot of
okay.
it has to
Magic do they
do
possess?
due to because
Because of the.
classroom function, it's different than a regular knob. Those sort of items to be able
Do your homework?
to key them a certain way.
Oh, so they
They-
have like that universal key
They're-
with
they're
those.
right, so we
Yeah.
need to be able to
Do not copy key things.
Right, we need to be able to key them to a master and also key them to a key for either that wing or that classroom. They have to have multiple functions to be
Right,
able to
right.
do that.
Wow,
So that makes it expensive.
it drives the cost up that high?
I'm gonna be on.
It's expensive and honestly, you would think a lot of it is the install or it's not. The knob itself,
Right.
if it's $800 to put it in, the knob is, $700 of it.
Oh my gosh.
Because they have to go there, they have to key it correctly, they have to install it. It's extremely expensive. And we just can't walk into a hardware store and buy a knob. Because the whole school has all these knobs, unless we want to replace every one of them. We really are stuck to using what they have there for a brand and a line of knob.
Right.
That's the hard part.
So where do we get our knobs?
Bird Security does a lot of the
Oh,
work
yeah.
because they have all the proper equipment to rekey
Mhm.
all these knobs.
Existing knobs.
Yeah, existing, they can go through, so we're hoping that we can stretch this money just by going through and just doing some maintenance, replacing springs and pins. Or even just lubricating and tightening. It could be just taking apart and going through and cleaning it. 30 years of grime in a doorknob. It's not pretty, so.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yep.
And that's what Burt's does, right?
That's what they specialize in.
They just take things apart.
They take it apart, they repair. I won't even tell you how much a crash bar, one of those push bars.
Oh, a door.
Oh,
with
come
the-
on, please, you can't say
The
that.
wooden
That's not
doors
tough.
with the mortise, they have the separate handle with the
Yeah.
knob above.
Yeah.
That's $1,500. Just for that cylinder sort of.
And the crash
It's-
bar?
The crash bar, they're upwards of $2,000 for a crash bar.
We're in the wrong business. We should do heat bumps and security.
They are.
Pumps and doorknobs.
And
They are
doorknobs.
super
What are you
expensive.
gonna do when
They
you
really
grow
are.
up?
And they're again, the
Heat
same with the
pumps and
crash bar.
doorknobs.
You can't just use any crash bar. You have to use one that we can put our cylinder in and have the keys to the keys that we have.
So it's not the kind that just has an Allen wrench that.
Right, stick a safety pin in there.
Right,
Oh my
right. So
goodness.
that's what makes it expensive. So
Ay,
we put some money in there. It's not gonna get us far, but we need to put some money in there and just
I can't
really.
wait to hear how far it got.
I know, right?
That's exciting.
3 doors.
3 new knobs.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so I know, when you talk about the price of it, and how many doorknobs, there's 100 or so doorknobs in a school. So if they're $1,000 a piece and we replace them all, it's a lot of money.
doorknobs.
It's a lot of money, it is. Roofing, this is the regular roofing inspection that we have. And we're hoping to finish up in next year's budget, the library furniture. So that way we can have a matching set. It's all new chairs, tables up there. Yeah, that'd be good.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Learn so much when we go through this list. Fascinating and horrifying all at the same time.
And school. Yes. That's a good way of looking at it, I guess.
Yes.
All right, high school, there are some question marks on here. That's just, those are there because of a couple unknown items. We did put in for some revolving renovation money. So we're not sure yet if we're going to receive any. Or if we are, how much we are going to receive. So there's a couple unknowns until we know where we're at with those. Hopefully they'll give us as much as they possibly can. And we only have to pay a portion of it. So we would only need to put a portion in there. Or we make the decision that we can't afford it this year, we need to push something back, into next year or the year after. So I just wanted to put a couple placeholders in there. Next item is the metal insulated panels on C-Wing. Again, $6,000 gets us 4 or 5 panels, depending on how large they are. So we're just continuing on. If anybody's on the basketball court out back, you can see some of the panels are still rusting through. So it's just to continue replacing those. Next item is fence replacement down on Hope Field. We have a new field, hoping to someday resurface the track. But the fencing is original from 1977. So it is in need. We've repaired some sections where we had to when we made the kind of cut in the fence line to get onto the field. So we repaired a little bit there. So what we'd be doing is this money would hopefully get us a good portion of the way around. We would still use the same posts that are there in the ground. Those are pretty solid and look fine, but they would be painted black. This would, then we would still do the 4-foot tall fencing, but we go with black fencing, new black top rails and new black caps. So it'd be
That'll
black
look
instead
fancy
of,
and pretty.
it would, instead of the old galvanized chain link relay fencing. They'd just pretty it up. The new fence that we did for where the gate is all black. So we're just gonna try to match all that all the way through. So as we replace fencing, it'll be the new black fabric along that area. So this hopefully will get us quite a ways around the tracks area.
Does any of that old galvanized fence have like a resale value to it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what?
We could look into that. I'll be honest, I'm not sure. Definitely recycle value to it. But somebody may be able to reuse it somewhere else, sure. Yep. So I can definitely talk to my fence guy and see if there might be some other use.
Yeah.
You know, if he may have a you know, a client or somebody that needs
Right.
600 feet of 40-year-old fence. You never know.
Yeah,
You
it's
never
only
know.
40 years old.
Gently used.
Gently used, exactly. The other item that's on here, gym wall waterproofing. Some of you might remember, we did some gym wall repair quite a few years back now. We waterproofed it at that time. It's been quite a while. So we definitely need to basically pressure wash it down, re-waterproof the wall. We would do any cracks in the mortar, remortar, reseal, those sort of things at the same time. So that's just some money to do that. Next item, gym floor maintenance, same at Helen Thompson. The high school floor is wood. That's a little bit bigger, so it takes a little bit more money to refinish it. But again, we do it ourselves. So this is the amount of money to redo that. Rear stairs on C-Wing. Again, if anybody's been by the back tennis courts over there, the rear stairs are in pretty bad shape. This would be we're going to take a look at it a couple different ways. If we can use the substructure that's there, but do composite decking and do some new railings, we'll do it that way. If not, they'll have to be removed and completely redone, a new set of rear stairs on C-Wing. Roof, annual inspection. We do have one roof section, and it's a big ticket item this year. It's the section over the library A-wing. It's, as you're looking at the center part of the high school, it's pretty much half of that center section over that library, ATM lab.
Yep.
That's that part of the building right there. So it's that whole piece.
So Gabe, looking at your plan, you also show that the high school would need to replace section 1 next year at 200,000.
Yep.
And at the same time, replace roof section 3 at the middle school for 84,000.
Yep.
So $284,000 in roof repairs next year?
That's what I have in there. So
I know that's what you have in there.
That's the number.
So each year, the roofing company that does all our PM work, part of the PM is also going through and they do an evaluation of all the roofs. And they have all of the back history on when they were done, when they were refurbished, and then when they're due for replacement. So looking at they take everything and they compile it, and 2 roofs came in 1 year. So I'm sure we can move something around. But that's what they gave me. So that's what I put in here. we can always look to see which section we have more problems with. This section at the high school, last year, we had numerous issues in this area. So that's why, and that's usually what we see. It's the year before. And then it's due for removal and it'll be redone the next year.
Is this the roof that when you're in the second floor of the high school and you look,
You can look
you
down.
can look down and there's big puddles?
Yeah, it's a flat roof, so there will be puddles. But yeah, it's the section you can look down over.
Right.
Last year, most of our leaks came from that section, and oddly enough, section 1. So these two sections at the high school are the two right now that are the two worst sections.
So I'm going to chime in. The reason Pat brought it up is our capital improvement project, which is only a part of Gabe's budget, is typically around $350,000 to $375,000 a year. So the projects that Pat mentioned obviously would pretty much encompass what we usually spend in our capital improvement budget. And like I said, it's only a part of Gabe's budget.
Yeah,
But,
no, I know you throw that number out, but
I
that
do.
number's been pretty much the same since I started working here 10 years ago. So, and as everybody knows, if they've done any work at their own homes, the cost
have
of
gone up.
materials, labor and everything have gone up considerably. So what we could get for $350,000 10 years ago is nowhere near what we can get now. So that's the hard part.
There are other things like the capital improvement projects that we've done, those
Yes.
interest and those payments aren't included in here. And those payments for those aren't equal payments, they're actually increasing every year. So I was looking at our QSCAB and our TELP payments for next year, which also increase. And we're also discussing doing a lighting retrofit project.
Yeah.
So there are other things in here that have to do with capital that aren't really. So when I say 350 to 375, that doesn't include our annual payments and other capital improvement projects we've done,
Yeah.
to be fair.
The other thing, and I know you have a little bit more to go through here, Gabe, but the other thing that the finance committee has discussed in the past is the possibility of doing a bond. So you may want to discuss that again. I know that there are some committee members that would really like to see that happen. I mean, as you look at next year's projection, I know I'm going ahead, I apologize.
You don't want to look at that number.
But where is it? The projection, it's actually the first page and it's in the back. It's, it's over $1.1 million. And a lot of that has to do with pavement. You've talked about doing a bond for pavement and maybe some of the other things such as renovating the bathrooms at the high school, things like that.
Right.
So I just want to put that back on your radar for you to discuss. I don't know the timelines.
I will share it. We talk about it whenever we talk about bonds, I bring up the timelines. The other thing that we may want to discuss is we have from time to time discussed doing a consolidated elementary school. And what I will say is that we are still paying for capital improvements on a building that we no longer own at TC Hamlin. So if the board is at all interested in the thought of doing a consolidated elementary school, I just wouldn't want to take out a long bond and be paying on a bond for schools that we no longer own, like the situation that we are in now. So maybe those are two conversations. At some time, we need to figure out how serious we are about either scenario.
I think that I'm serious about it. I think, however, that people get wedded to their community schools and don't necessarily understand how the budget works, how all these things tie together, and we really can't afford that emotional attachment to a building. We really need to work at what's best for the whole district and what we can afford to do. So I do think it's definitely
Am I late?
Finance is at 5:30.
5:30.
Been in the parking lot for 20 minutes.
Oh, my gosh.
I was in another meeting anyway.
Oh, Chris. I just assumed you had another meeting and you couldn't be here.
I was in
tonight.
another meeting.
Well, there you go. So you're
I've still been in
perfect.
the parking lot for 40 minutes. All right, sorry, my bad.
No, you're fine. I do think it's time for us to sort of construct a way to talk about that because it'll be a big conversation, but when we think about the things we can provide for students, which is our job, overall, even though we're in charge of all the buildings and all that other stuff, I think it's stuff that we need to, conversations we realistically need to begin having seriously.
And we are outgrowing our current buildings. We have modulars at 2 of our 4 elementary
Right.
schools. So, it's a conversation and overall there, I think Pat and I have discussed, and we may have discussed with finances, the overall savings of a consolidated elementary school, not only in capital and buildings and grounds and facilities, but in duplication of staff and programs, so.
And building-based learning together with staff and what we're doing. We just need to, I mean, when I think about and we've done a really great job with the modular buildings, but it's a patchwork of putting things together so that we have room to do the things that we need to do. And all those patches add a little extra money to the utilities, to the maintenance, I mean, it's just a little bit more on every single thing. And I want to provide the best we can for kids, and I don't think kids care much about real estate. So I think it's
I
time to
think,
about that.
I think if finance wants to have that conversation, we absolutely should. I would remind you that we're kind of wrapping up our strategic planning conversations. And so it'll be interesting to see what type of information we glean from there that you may want to use, what we hear from our community, from our parents, from our students. You may want to be able to use that information as a driver, some of your decisions here in finance.
I agree.
This winter, one of our buildings, the heating cost for 1 month was $21,000 alone. So, I mean, we're talking about a lot of money on our facilities, so.
$21,000 for one building.
Yeah, this has not been a great heating year for us.
I'm not sure it's been a great heating year for anyone, but $21,000 in one of our schools, that's a lot of taxpayer money to keep people warm.
Unfortunately, we budgeted a 40% increase based on conversations. So, I mean, we went into this knowing, but it's a lot of money.
It is, and people need to, when we make the decisions about how we're gonna, what we're gonna do with our buildings, people need to understand, our community needs to understand what it costs right now to do it this way and what it might cost to do
So we
it
should
a different
have
way.
a series of, or I don't know how many, but strong educational meetings for the
Yeah.
public. And do we have any idea where a consolidated elementary school could go?
10 good acres somewhere.
I don't know if 10 acres
I mean,
is enough. You're gonna need more than that.
I'm just saying by
But-
the state regulation, but maybe it's even higher than that now. It would be optimal if it could go someplace between the middle school and the high school so that we just had like many communities, have everything in one big campus. That would be,
There is land behind the middle school that we do own. They originally were gonna do another ball field up back, sports sort of complex. It's not enough to do a whole school. So definitely you would have to approach some abutting landowners to see if they'd be willing to, it wouldn't be specifically road frontage, we could still access, via the, middle school entrance. But it would be back property. That would be just as, starting point suggestion anyway. And it would be nice to have it, if we were looking at this, to have sort of like a campus feel. You have the middle school, the high school, elementary school, kind of be able to share things. It would, for transportation wise, busing for, from one school to the other, it would be all together. For the special ed department, it would, it
Soften
helps
those
all, it
feelings.
helps all around.
Yeah.
Field usage or
Right.
anything, it just,
Nurses,
it keeps it right there.
Right.
What kind of,
Well, it would be, you could probably eliminate the cost of running one elementary school if
Right.
you combined. I have some preliminary numbers, I thought I had shared that with you before, that if you just combine schools, we could probably save, I think it was 7 teaching positions, without giving it really any thought. And just throwing out ballpark numbers, I was easily over $1 million savings. So that's on the low end. But, you know, had I remembered to buy the lottery ticket, I mean, I was
I
gonna
know.
donate millions so that you guys could build, but
I said I was gonna go and then I didn't do it.
I forgot.
I
Well, and I was
forgot.
pretty excited when they said somebody from Maine, and I'm like, I raced right down there and I didn't even get one number, so.
How much did they
My
win?
New York relatives.
Did you win it?
Oh, really?
so
It's, I think it was
1.3 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Billion?
Yeah.
Billions.
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
side by
We could
side.
afford 3 new,
After taxes, it's like 900 million.
Side by side.
Can you
A
imagine?
theoretical, like a
My life would-
theoretical side by side, be like,
Just
this is the very actual nice round number that is our total cost for all of these schools, and this is our projected nice round number that's our annual total cost, like.
The goal would be to get on the state's construction list, which is opening up in 2024.
They're
That would
putting
be,
more money into it.
that would mean the state would contribute towards our project. That would be the ultimate.
well, the other thing that they're doing in preparation is they're actually going to have all of the school facilities assessed so that they have a better understanding of what all the school facilities, the condition of all the school facilities around the state. So I believe that's in 2 years, so 24. I don't know that the construction application, I thought that was gonna be 25, so that they had a year to really pull together this comprehensive assessment of all of the school properties around the state, but
I thought that's what Bill had said, Bill Stockmeyer, but I could be wrong.
Pender was our guest at our meeting on Saturday, and I thought she said the same thing.
24.
That's what I thought she said, yeah.
But I certainly think we wanna be ready when they do an
Ahead of
assessment.
I think we need to be ahead of the 8 ball on that one.
Yeah.
And I think having modulars helps our
Yes.
I mean, it's, the modulars are a solution for now, but they're not long term.
And I do
That's for sure.
believe that if you, as a board, and then of course it would have to be approved by the community. If you move forward with a consolidated construction project, you're going to get additional points for that.
And we have discussed amongst ourselves that the 4 buildings that we would be getting rid of, Pat had mentioned that they would make great
Retirement,
Elderly housing,
which we are.
you know, it's
Cleaned it up
a
the building.
year.
That came out really nice.
And, you know, I have a parent who had to be on a waiting list for a year to be able to get into an apartment.
That's everybody, those waiting lists
Absolutely.
are
But if you think about the layout at LER
perfect.
or Riverview, that would be a perfect layout for that
Any
type of facility.
perfect, they're all
They have elevators,
accessible
they're-
and
Yep.
that would be perfect.
all handicap
I mean, that
accessible.
would be one,
Pretty and
that would
light.
be a hope, but
So,
depending on, that's a lot of students.
so
Sorry.
no, that's good. I think it's good to get out,
Well,
you know,
there
to
is,
share
for
what
sure.
you're thinking. I want Gabe to be able to finish going through, and I want to be respectful from Gabe. This morning, the weather was pretty poor, and so Gabe was probably out and about plowing at 3 a.m. and he hasn't been to bed since,
He went
right?
and had
He's
a
worked
nap?
all day. So I'd like to
Oh,
maybe
man.
move forward and let
Okay.
Gabe go.
30 seconds,
Okay.
30 seconds of a nap until my wife's like, you need to go. Okay, I'm
Oh,
leaving.
geez. Okay. Oh,
So
man.
sorry.
That's fine. No, not a problem. So I don't have a lot left, honestly. The big piece, the roof at the high school, that's the one really large item over at the high school. We, again, like I mentioned before, the heat pumps are 30-ish years old, same as Helen Thompson, so we would start really, not necessarily next year, I just put some, repair price in there, but the next following years after that, we really need to start putting some money aside for heat pump replacements over there. Classroom furniture, we needed a couple more things over at the high school, so we put a couple $1,000s in there just for some classroom furniture to finalize that over at the high school. Next in line is superintendent's office. Some of you might not even have noticed, but our sign is not there for MSAD11. Maybe we need to look at redoing something for this year. No one's noticed the sign's been missing for a month-ish.
Oh, it's been longer than
Has it been
that.
longer than that? I can't remember. One of these past really crazy windstorms, rainstorms we had, our sign ended up blowing over and landing in the road.
Our sign here?
Yeah, sign here.
Big sign.
And it's still gone?
It's still gone.
Which one?
The
Big
big
one.
sign.
It says MSAD11.
Superintendent's office.
It's
gone?
No, we need to do-
Somebody was
Well,
nice enough to
Oh
take
my
the sign
gosh.
and drag it out of the road and put it up along the building.
It was actually Angela. She
Oh,
was here at
okay.
the time, and I don't know if she took it out of the road exactly,
my
but she's the
gosh.
one who hauled it up, yeah.
So we do have the
Strong
sign.
girl.
It has some damage to it. It obviously needs some new post resets, new brackets. We may be able to use what's there. But this is at least for some repairs or look at redoing a new sign.
I'm astonished.
Maybe it's the shrubs are too big. Nobody notices the sign because the shrubs now are growing so large. So we may look at redoing a little bit of that.
That's all right.
Like at the middle school, doorknob repairs or replacements here. We have multiple doorknobs here that even though these knobs aren't as old because of the renovation that was done here. But still, I believe that renovation was in the early 90s, I think. At some point in time, it was well before me starting.
And there are no keys available to
95.
lock
Year Zach was born.
all of our offices or to
So-
unlock, so if there were an emergency
Right, so almost 30
situation,
years, the
we can't
the
lock,
offices don't
I
lock.
can't lock my door.
Right.
Oh, we hate that.
So,
Yep, so we need to do some repair on the knobs. Again, they're $800 a piece for these. So we need to really look at redoing those. Annual roof inspection, that's just the normal. Last one is the transportation office. And we really need some parking lot lighting.
Yeah.
It's just really dark. It always has been dark in the parking lot, truthfully, but we have a lot of trips that come in late. And the drivers, they pull in, they have to go through their buses, they clean their buses, and it's in the pitch black darkness. They have to walk from where the buses are parked, go to their vehicles. We put cameras up that's in the parking lot, so it's hoping we can put some.
I thought we were gonna take that out of the capital budget that we share with the city, that we were going to approach the city because it's a shared.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
If we do that, I
Yeah.
left it in here,
You can.
so we can talk about it here.
Yeah.
So
If
absolutely
it
fine.
doesn't happen there. it needs to
That
happen.
account is healthy and they
Yes,
use
it
it
is.
when they go and they fuel their vehicles as well. So it would make sense for us to do it together out of that capital account if they agree to do so.
No, and they also come in the middle, like, especially this time of year plowing. The PD are in there numerous times a night. The gentlemen that work that shift, they come in there, they fuel up before their end of their shift. So it would benefit not just us, but
Yeah.
the city, the police, fire, all around to have some better lighting in that parking lot for sure. Yeah. And that's really it for this year.
That's
Next
really,
year?
I mean, next year, sorry.
and that's really it.
That is
Only.
it.
Only that.
Only a bargain, what, $491,000,
That's it.
Yeah.
Yikes.
which I know is more than what Andrea wants to see.
It's not about Andrea.
So kind of back to the question about, do you want to discuss a bond? When do you want to discuss that? That should probably be on an agenda so that there's public notice about it, so people are aware you're discussing it. Same thing if you want to talk about a combined elementary school. And then we would just need to know, you know, like Jack was saying, what he would like to see.
Mhm.
What type of information would you like from us? Keeping in mind, we are in the throes of budget season and everything else, and a lot of that takes time to pull together, so.
So as a reminder, we had a bond payment in our budget for this year. And as we started discussing our budget issues, the bond payment was removed. So it was decided at the finance committee level. So I will budget another bond payment and we will have the conversation.
Do you remember the total that we were,
I don't, I would have to look at
I think
last year.
I think the board looked at a range.
I think it was a range.
Yeah, I mean, at one time, you're looking at a million or $1.5 million, but as we started looking at some other renovations that needed to be done, because yes, while your buildings have been maintained, it's just normal wear and tear. I think we got up to easily 3 million, but I don't know that the
I
board
think it
went
was
that
higher.
far. Was it higher than that?
I think so. But I hesitate to put a number out there.
It was the paving, for
Paving,
sure.
yeah.
I think it was the bathroom.
Locker rooms, was it the
Locker
locker
rooms.
rooms
I
at
think
the
that
high
that's
school, the
probably what it was.
bathrooms,
Bathrooms.
at the high school, not at the middle school,
Right, it was just the
right?
high school. Yep. Just the high school
And then the
bathroom
paving of all the
renovations.
parking lots, because they've been,
You had a great document, I think you had that all broken out, if you can find that.
And I think one of the other reasons why we decided to push off the paving is because
The
the
prices.
high cost
Yeah.
of paving and
right.
until the situation with Ukraine,
Mhm.
we may not want to be looking at doing a huge paving project, at least.
Potentially, although right now, the price is much better than when you were talking about it before. When you were talking about it before, it was
Right.
almost $5 per gallon,
Whoa. Yeah. It's crazy.
so.
So that was the other reason, the cost of the bond payment and then the cost of
The
petrol.
material.
Yep, because
We
that's
gotta
what
be
it
aware
is.
of two things, right? A possible bond and then a possible consolidated school, because you don't want to get going on the consolidated school and be paying for things we don't own anymore.
Right.
Correct.
Yep,
Correct.
that's where the,
That is.
Exactly.
that's where the
I was gonna
Exactly.
ask,
cooperation
is it,
needs to come in.
if, how do I word this? Would it make a stronger argument for the state's help if we had vast swaths of roofs that were a patchwork of?
Yeah, I know, of
Does that
patching and patching.
lend some
I know.
weight to the argument for
Right,
it?
instead of replacing big.
And,
Yes.
yes.
And
Yes.
that's kind of why maybe other school districts are rating higher than we are. They haven't necessarily dedicated the money
Mhm.
for whatever reason. I'm not trying to sound judgmental. There are lots of reasons why. But because they haven't been able to budget or have chosen not to budget or whatever the reason, their buildings are in worse condition than the buildings here. And so as a result, yeah, you're rated lower. because our buildings are being maintained.
Interesting.
Really well.
So Jack's point is if we're looking at being rated, maybe now is not the time.
But then, okay, if you say, well, we're gonna defer it, then what happens? We have greater damage.
Right.
And so let's say you still don't rate high. Well, now not only have we deferred the repair, you now have the additional cost of the damage that was created as a result.
And everything costs more
And how is that fiscally responsible?
each year.
You know,
And
Then you also have the
but I'm not, what I
future
think what you're.
property value,
right,
if you choose to do anything with any of the buildings we own.
right. Absolutely.
But again, we don't want to be paying for a $5 million bond if we don't know
Right,
the
absolutely,
elementary schools anymore,
right.
you know.
Right, I mean, definitely, I mean, just looking at the paving, if the conversation really wants to move forward with a consolidated school, you know, maybe on the paving portion of it anyway, we don't look at completely ripping all the old pavement out, we just do overlays, which will give us your 6-7 years timeframe to overlay over the paving, which obviously is going to be a lot less than redoing all the paving. The high school is honestly the worst, and we're not consolidating the high school, so, and a lot of the renovations that we looked at in the bond were to the high school. So that really wouldn't affect the elementary schools, other than really the paving piece. But if we just did a pave and overlay, it's gonna be a lot less, definitely. So we can, obviously, there's a couple decisions have to be made, but the high school would need some paving. It
Yeah,
really-
always needs paving.
It is in desperate need. The student parking lot is, it's in shambles. It needs some major work. We did work out front, but the parking lot for the students is pretty bad.
I would think the bigger the project, the more the savings. So if we're able to do a project with all of our schools, I would think it would be cheaper than just doing the high school alone. If we're just talking about, if we're talking about the construction project list going out in 2024, I'm not talking about putting off our bond for 10 years.
Right.
We would know within a year when the ratings come out. Just pressing a pause, because if we don't get it, then yes, it would make sense for us to do all of our paving at the same time to try to get bigger bang for our buck, rather than piecemealing it together and bringing.
Well, I'm just not sure how long we can go with the high school.
Right, I was gonna say, I
I mean,
agree with
really-
you, but I'm hearing the high
Right,
school
yeah.
can't wait 3 years.
There's not much pavement left. There's really, no, we're at the point where there's pieces that just crumbles constantly. So we're at the point where it just needs to be ground up, and we're gonna have a dirt parking lot pretty soon.
Is that bad?
Well,
Is that
it's on quite it's actually quite a slope that's there. I'm
Erosion.
not sure how it would hold up, if it would hold up very well.
Water
I'm
and
sure
mud.
students would probably love it.
Love that.
They would be out there spinning around more than they are now, probably.
Yep.
Yeah, it is in really bad shape. We did the overlay and the patchwork with some of the federal money that we had, so we're able to do that. But we really didn't touch the student parking, hoping that there would be some sort of bond that we could push through. But like I said, worst case, if we had to, we can take what's there and overlay, and it'll get us through for, like I said, 6-7 years.
7?
Yep, something like that.
Great.
That's it,
Okay.
that's all I have.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Yes, no problem.
All right. Budget timeline.
So the last item that you have in front of you is a copy of the tentative budget timeline for this year, just so that you all know. This is subject to change.
Oh, don't worry.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm gonna read the whole thing. Basically, the month of March will be finance committee meetings. We typically have at least a meeting every week. and we go back and forth with the administrators, and we were trying to work some magic. In April, the budget gets set. In May, it goes out to print and the warrants go out, and basically the budget season ends with the June 10th, the school budget referendum meeting that we have at the high school, and then the budget referendum at the polls on the 14th. Again, all of these dates are tentative. We usually try to pair our referendum with the state referendum so that we don't have to pay the cost of the referendum. It all depends whether or not the state has a spring referendum. So typically they hold it on the second Tuesday of the month, and that's what's on here. So like I said, everything is tentative and subject to change. Questions about the budget timeline?
It's not, this isn't a question, but I heard a few times after the vote in June that people voted the budget down because we didn't spend enough. So I wonder if we need to approach, well, the explanation you're wanting to bring forward will help with that. What do we need versus what we're budgeting?
The report that Pat's talking about is the state. Basically, what happens is every quarter, I upload data to the state, so they're looking for the year-end data. And then they take all of that data by expenditure article. And then what they do is they rank districts or show what each school district spends per pupil in each of the expenditure articles. So you can see how much we spend for like school administration or this office. And honestly, it's a very, we always used to see the entire report that compared us against everything, against everyone else. But it's very telling when you look at it by expenditure article. And the expenditure articles are dictated to us by the state. They're the ones who say how these expenditure articles are grouped. So it's interesting.
We also looked at it last year at the overarching overall per pupil amount that school districts spend, not just per article, but overall. And if you'll recall last year, I provided a comparison to all of the neighboring school districts. And for the most part, if we were to spend an equivalent per pupil amount in our district that the other school districts spend, we would be adding, it was around 1.2 million to $1.5 million to our budget. That's how much lower we spend per pupil. And I believe if we were to match the state average, we would be adding about $3 million to our budget. Mhm.
We are it's both a blessing and a curse. We are a bang for our buck.
But that's partly why we're challenged, right? Because we don't necessarily have the capacity that we need to do everything that we'd like to do. So
you heard, Becky, that a lot of people voted down the budget because they didn't think we
I
was.
wouldn't say a lot. I would say I heard several times, more than once, less than 50, that people didn't think we spent enough.
I didn't hear anything on voting. I just know a couple of anecdotal things that a couple of people said, well, gee, when you look at those figures, are we doing well enough by our students? And I said, we try very hard to, but nobody was saying the budget was too high, but somebody probably does.
Well, I didn't hear it too high. I did hear too low. I heard too low.
It's really hard in a community like ours when you have some tax bases who have a mill rate of 13, 14, and you have others who have a mill rate of 24, 25. It creates a huge disparity between the communities. So while some communities who have a mill rate of 14, I mean, there's a lot of wiggle room as opposed to somebody who's paying 24, 25. So it's it's rough. So I get what Becky's saying. There are people who would be willing to spend more, and then there's a part of our tax base that I think if you asked anybody, when you get into the 20s, into the high 20s, that,
I can't do that.
so there's a disparity.
And it's, if you hear from some of the smaller communities that, 85% of their tax bill is the schools, but they don't have the same services.
Right.
We're a service center with the library, the police, the fire. And so while theirs is 80%, their tax bill is still half of my tax bill, even at that cost, so.
I also heard people understanding, they'd say, well, of course the budget would go up. All of our budgets
Right,
everywhere go
right.
up with the cost of everything.
Which is another reason why a consolidated school, I think we'd be able to spend more per pupil in areas of instruction and more in per pupil costs in the classroom and less on facilities and other things. There wouldn't be so many duplications of services like library and kitchens and things. So it just makes perfect sense.
That's what we have to push, what you just said.
Yeah, people need to understand that. And we're maybe coming, maybe not, I hesitate to say, but the real commitment to those community schools might be changing as our demographics change a little bit and families move in that didn't necessarily grow up here. And it's not that we don't respect, no disrespect to the small community schools, but you get to a place where you just need to do more. And you can't do more if you don't have the resources to do more.
I think it's been a long time since kids, like a school was built and kids were able to walk to school. I mean, when was the last time? I mean, our net of kids is much larger. We don't have community schools the way that we did when I was a child. And I think it's an older, a vision of older people, not necessarily parents of children now. So, and if you think about it, eventually the kids from all of our communities end up coming to Gardner at the middle school and the high school, so.
And that's not something that's easily thought of when you have a baby, your first time, oh, we got this good little baby and they're gonna go. I did it, it never occurred to me that my kids were gonna go to the middle school. They were gonna be an LER for, lasted for about 5 years.
Freya's been excited forever to get to high school so she can be with her friends that go to other schools and other, like
Well,
private schools. And
And that's another thing that's really changed in the last, 15 years is just the amount of extracurricular activities that our children participate in that are not connected to school, so that our children know each other. They know each
Yeah.
other through gymnastics, through dance, through sports.
The only downside when you just said that is the gym use, all the youth
Yes.
sports and field use. That's
true.
something you lose that you might have to consider when you're building this complex.
Might have to have more than one gym.
Well, it's
Or ball
similar
fields,
for,
Right.
soccer.
county has multiple,
Soccer.
multiple gyms.
All those organizations that use those fields and
Right.
gyms.
One of these buildings
Yep,
into
but that could be part of the,
It's gotta be part of the plan.
part of the whole plan
Community
is.
center with fields,
Yeah, wouldn't that be
like a
great?
community center with
But
fields.
just saying, there's
Yeah,
all kinds of moving parts.
all the moving parts.
Are these dates, these are Wednesdays, they're not, the dates aren't right.
The dates are Wednesdays. I thought I had changed them all. Usually we continue to
saying.
meet on Tuesdays.
I know, I can't even get the time right, but I did see that we're meeting tomorrow. I was like, I'm not, but
These are all tentative, sorry.
I
my
just want to make
fault.
sure that, yeah, because it says
No.
they're all Wednesdays for
We
finance.
will continue to send out agendas.
It's gotta
But-
be good.
They're supposed to be Tuesdays.
Yes. Yeah. This is just
I
the
got that part
timeline.
right.
There you go.
We will see a lot of each other next in the month of March.
Yes, we will. The
March
Ides
is
of
a
March.
busy month.
Yep.
Right.
March is a crazy month.
So anything else? Future agenda items, budget, and one school and
Budget, bond, and
bond and one
The
school.
next meeting, we will go over the 8279, which is what Pat promised. If that report is, the per pupil report is done at the state, I will try to put that again on the agenda. I don't know if you want me to try to add the bond discussion when we're talking about the 8279, or whether we should save that for another conversation.
well, after next month, we're gonna be in the throes of budget development. So if we don't discuss it, it's going to be too late for us to
Right.
discuss it. So if you could find the document that you created and shared last year, we can update that.
I will,
Yeah.
for that. So those are the 3 agenda items and they're all pretty.
And so in February, as a reminder as well, the third week in February is school vacation. So we don't meet school vacation week. Instead, it will be the Tuesday following school vacation that we'll meet.
And we're done.
I have nothing else.
Sorry,
You don't need to be.
I had
silent.
6:30 in my phone.
It's okay.
All
Oh
of
gosh.
it, I changed it though.
That's
I would have been late next month too.
Yeah, it's the board meetings,
I have a
$6:30.
I know, I
W9
put, I just,
to fill out. Can
it
you
must have
help me?
defaulted to
You have
6:30.
A W9.
Why do you have a W? You should not have a W-9.
I think so. That's because I do some work for Maine School Management.
Oh, gotcha.
All right.
I should,
Thank you.
so.
Good night.